Hey everyone, I'm Real Prism Sword, and I'm back with another LOR Top 10 list. In today's list, I'm going to be a bit more focused on Path to Champions. The reason for this is because I did my entire November monthly challenges on my stream, and I got a perfect 70 clears without losing a single encounter. I also did this fast enough, which let me get a top spot on the front page of the leaderboard for this month, and being able to do this with everyone trying to claim a spot now that there's an actual award attached to monthly challenges feels like a nice accomplishment. In today's list, I wanted to impart the knowledge from my run onto anyone looking to get those 70 clears for themselves for the Aurelian Soul Fragments. And so we'll be taking a look at what I think are some of the most deadly encounters for November 2023 monthly challenges. I'll be talking about what I think makes these challenges so deadly, what I used to beat them, and what alternate strategies you could consider if you don't have the champion at all or at a similar power level. If you like what you see, I really do hope you consider liking, commenting, subscribing, telling all your friends about it, all that good YouTube stuff. As doing all the 70 encounters in one day, writing a script, compiling all the footage, editing all this together took a ton of effort, and whatever love you can give back to this would mean a lot to me personally. Also, I've been regularly streaming Runeterra content on Twitch. As you can see, I streamed this entire run here. So consider following there, that'd be pretty cool too. And then I've also considered posting my entire run unedited on YouTube into different segments. So if that's something you actually want, let me know in the comments down below and I'll consider doing it. With all that out of the way, let's get into the video. To start off this list at number 10, we have Darius 15. While he's far from the most broken thing this month, if you don't take him seriously, the incidental burn damage he does thanks to his power and unit's abilities can quickly add up if you don't clear his board. The main reason why I did include him on this list is because I didn't take him seriously and didn't draw well, which almost landed me in finding an early death of a marathon because of it. Most characters in the game should be able to find the victory without too much trouble, as long as you can clear his units that don't get buffed by his round start mutator, Fixer-Upper. I personally picked Ashe, and I still stand by that selection because on Darius' attack token turn, you can effectively nullify his strengthened unit. However, you can find a win with whatever your favorite mid-tier character is, with bonus points to any deck that enjoys casting spells since you get a rebate on mana thanks to Embrace the Current. Just make sure that you don't use one of your higher tiered characters for an encounter this early. At number 9, I put in Katarina 6. While I was able to get through her fairly easily, she got this spot because I saw a few people trip over her in their initial runs. Katarina 6 has the slight benefit for herself that most people would not pay too much attention to her or think to even use a strong character for the initial 10 or 20 encounters, but that's how she can sneak a win. But Katarina 6 can quickly overwhelm you if you don't have a strong game plan that gets online in the first 4 or so rounds. The reason why this encounter can be deadly if you're not mindful is because Katarina and her power pairs fairly nicely with the free Mirror Mage she's given. A free stat boost to Mirror Mage each time Katarina gets played, and the Mirror Mage doubling up on Katarina's Blade Judge can also make building a board difficult. In addition to this, if you take too long, the Ardent Sensor item on Blade Judge doubling up can potentially lead to bigger units to deal with in the future turns. I used Poro King since I knew he would eventually outstack Katarina and her Mirror Mage, especially since he can proc the free evolve keyword you're given thanks to the Unnatural Selection mutator. You could probably use a plethora of options to win if you can use the beneficial mutator well. However, this is one of the few early encounters that you shouldn't take lightly. At number 8, we have Fiora 39. This Fiora is fairly daunting because she can not only threaten to level fairly easily and achieve her win condition, thanks to being able to challenge your Funsmiths, but she can also threaten damage to your Nexus fairly quickly thanks to how wide her board can get thanks to the free sapling granted by Nature's Revenge mutator. The double threat of Fiora either killing 4 units and automatically winning, or dealing enough damage to you is very real, and you need to be careful in navigating how you play out your turns, otherwise you can realistically die to one or the other. I played Kayn because I thought I'd be able to use the free Funsmiths that were given to you, and then you can give them equipment or buff spells, and that would be enough to stall until you get to Kayn. But as you can see in the gameplay, despite eventually stabilizing with Rost, she was fairly close to threatening to kill me if she drew a bit differently. I think if you play characters with strong removal options like Kindred, Vhagar, or Volibear, you can probably keep Fiora down enough to either outstat or outvalue her. At number 7, I put in Z52. Personally speaking, I don't think this encounter is anything special, but I would be remiss to not include him in this list because he was one of 2 encounters that actually managed to land the kill on me and force to revive. It wasn't because there was any special mutator going on, but I just managed to draw the worst possible hand with Elise, and they managed to get the best possible outcome out of Nora from their first Howling Abyss generation. Despite this bad luck, I still almost managed to find the victory, even with the odds insurmountably stacked against me, and I effortlessly won on my second fight after the revive with even less health in the first battle, because I just simply drew a better hand. Which goes to show that for a high star encounter, the Zed wasn't anything too crazy. Just use any of your generally strong characters that can deal with an early Zed, and usually speaking, there's nothing that Howling Abyss will do to make you lose. At number 6 we have Swain23. I will say that the main danger from this encounter is that the mini-boss of Draven is actually more daunting than the final boss of Swain. A Draven encounter where you can't really block without losing your units, since they'll die at round end if they're damaged, means that your Nexus health will quickly fall if you don't have a bunch of chump blockers. I personally use the top tier hero in the form of Nidalee, but as you can see in the gameplay footage being shown, despite how powerful she is, the Draven still managed to bring my Nexus to low health since they had double attacking Draven and a wide board. However, if you manage to leverage your life total properly as a resource, you should be able to eventually stabilize and quickly overtake him with whatever powerful combo your character does. Once you do beat this Draven, the Swain is more of a pushover compared to him since his own power is effectively worthless in the face of his mutator. I will say it's definitely worth cracking open one of your top tier characters for this fight, like Vyasuo, Veigar, Nami, or anything else that can consistently remove whatever board Draven manages to throw at you. At number 5 I put Viego60. I think this is one of the more generally good mutators the enemy can have, and there's not too much crazy synergy going on aside from Viego getting more fodder to fuel his power. Due to the nature of every unit getting free strength every turn, and the opposing Viego or Yasuo mid-boss getting a free couple of units on their board every round, you can quickly find yourself taking a ton of damage if you're not careful. I use Talia because she has a ton of free stats and can deal massive damage to end fights quickly thanks to the overwhelm she naturally carries from her power. I will say that Talia may have not been the most optimal high tier champ to use, since the constant +2 power boost that the enemy gets as well means that your free +1/+1 boost is a bit diminished in that regard. Despite this, I do think there's a couple of different characters that can be used against Viego60 like Garen, Lux, Diana, or Leona. Just make sure that you don't use any low tier characters, because if you can't get around the wide board they constantly put up on both offensive and defensive turns, Viego60 will have you annoyed. At number 4 I put Aurelia54. Aurelia is just naturally one of the strongest encounters that you can face off against Empathic champions, and this iteration of her is no different. Every unit doubling its power on strike means that things can scale out of hand fairly quickly, and the fact that Aurelia is going to be doing a ton of attacks for free means she can end your encounter if you aren't careful. She makes this list because I heard a bunch of people on social media mention that they had trouble with her, so I thought she definitely deserved an inclusion on this top 10, especially since, as I mentioned earlier, Aurelia in general can oftentimes be strenuous. The only time she made an appearance this month was in this encounter 54, and she still left a mark based on how many Reddit and Twitter comments I saw talking about her. I personally breezed through this Aurelia because I took the threat of her seriously, and I willingly used one of my emergency tier champions, in this case, my Jinx, to clear her effortlessly. If you want to get past Aurelia 54, you shouldn't try sneaking past her with mid or low tier characters. Use your top tier characters that can remove her the moment she hits the board, or you'll probably end up too far behind to ever hope to claim victory. At number 3 I have Yasuo68. I do think this is another case of the mini-boss being more daunting than the final boss. However, Yasuo is no slouch either when compared to the Azir fight before him. The mutator of Remove the Imperfections is a fairly strong one, as it keeps you behind non-tempo by always bouncing your units on board back to your hand. And the fact that Azir fight can constantly summon strong tokens, which can remove your meager early units, means that you will definitely struggle if you don't have a strong character in your roster. When you get to the Yasuo fight, he also synergizes fairly well with his mutator since he can deal damage to whatever card gets bounced by Remove the Imperfection. And if enough stuns and recalls happen, and Yasuo levels, the damage that he does can oftentimes be enough to outright destroy your cards. I used Aatrox because I wanted to use one of my emergency tier characters since I knew that this would be messed up. He has a lot of sustain, lots of mana cheating opportunities, and the ability to clear boards fairly easily whenever he's summoned. I think whichever top tier character you use will be a fine one, with bonus points being whichever champion doesn't rely on having too many units on the board. The more champion focused the deck is, the better, because champions cannot be bounced by remove the imperfection. At number 2, I put in Caitlyn 50. Even though personally this was a breeze for me, I did use one of my better champions in Nami, and I also got a fairly lucky item on her, which trivialized the encounter. Despite all this, I could still see that this encounter could be one that'll trip up most people, especially if they don't have a wide array of champions in their roster. This monthly encounter is incredibly deadly because Caitlyn's power shuffles flash bombs every round, which will ping off your small board, and the mutator, small stuff, will turn every unit you summon into a 1-1, which pairs really nicely at keeping your board down. This means if you want to find victory, you'll either need to win quickly with whatever unit you develop, or you'll need to quickly buff up whatever board you manage to stick before flash bombs can explode. While I personally use Nami under the idea that I could buff up my board and remove Caitlyn using Nami's spells, I do think Yuumi is one of the best champions you can use, assuming you have the adequate star powers. Getting free early Poros will nearly guarantee something to buff and attach with Yuumi, which means your stats will probably grow faster than the damage that the Caitlyn's flash bombs can do. And to finish off this list at number 1, I have Z64. This was the other encounter I briefly mentioned earlier that was actually able to land the kill on me, and that was just the Azir mid-boss. To claim victory for this one after dying, I actually pulled out MS Paint on one of the later turns to make sure that I could find the lines to succeed, and even then, the Azir mid-boss was still close to defeating me twice in one encounter and denying me a spot on the front page of the leaderboard. As the most dangerous encounter on my list, the Azir Z64 combo also has the same potent mutator as the last one on this list, Small Stuff, which will keep your units at a tiny size, so it'll be difficult to outstat Azir Sand Soldiers or an attacking Zed. Combined with the fact that they get extra mana from Savage Mysticism and Vicious Enemy, means that they'll be able to play out their threats even sooner than you'd normally expect from an Azir or Zed fight. The champion I used to beat Z64 was Alawi. The reason why I picked her was because I thought if I could spawn a tentacle and then make it big enough through constant spawning, it could help level Alawi and make her also have big stats too when swinging. The reason why my pick almost failed is because Azir can really turn the heat on fairly easily if he goes first and gets his best possible hand of Azir and Dunekeeper. If you don't have a strong enough Alawi, using your break in case of emergency tiered champions like Jinx, Nidalee, Aatrox can be very well worth it. If you already use all of your top tier champions, consider using characters with strong removal or stall like Veigar, Nami, and Yasuo. Anyways, that's my list of the most dangerous encounters of November 2023's monthly challenge run. Do you have any encounters that you had trouble completing or are having difficulties with now? Let me know in the comments and I'm sure me or someone else would give advice. If you liked what you see, please consider doing all that good YouTube stuff of liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Hope you have a good day and I'll see you all for the next video.